comfort of being together and being compassionate and kind to one another as we think about those who are, maybe haven't found their way or way of agreeing and agreeing to disagree with each other without becoming enemies. We thank you, Lord, for everyone in this room. We thank you for Irving as he prepares to give us, some words on the theme of his latest book. We treasure him. We are proud of him for all his accomplishments and for all that he does, both professionally and in the community. Dear Lord, we are asking you to guide our thoughts, our reflections, and let us leave here with a feeling of camaraderie and, blessings that we can share and carry forward with each other. We ask this through your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Marjorie. I am admitting, okay. Again, I just want to, maybe I should just tell you how I come to know the Honorable Justice Irving Andre. I worked as a provincial prosecutor many, many moons ago. And I met him in the very early stages of his career when he was working as a provincial prosecutor with the Ministry of Labor. We worked out of the same space. And before you know it, I went to my office one day and he was there as a crown attorney. And then before I had time to turn around, he left and he opened his own practice. And he's just someone who keeps moving. It's hard to hold him down. And I appreciate him for that. But I do have an organization in the community. And when I had the idea, I went to him about it, and just to see the kind of person he is. There are some people, they put you through a whole lot of questions. How are you going to do it? Why are you going to do it? And so on. But the only thing he said to me when I asked him, do you need a place to meet? You can use my office. That's how he responded to me when I told him that I wanted to start this organization. And we started in his office on Chapel Street. And I should say that for those who know him well, that I don't know if he's still doing it, but he was a collector of fine arts. And he had all the artwork and sculptures in his office, but they were usable. You could sit on them. It's not the kind of person that you can't touch them because he collected them from all over the world. He had a chair in his office that I call the throne, but you could sit on it, right? Even though it was a part of his artwork, you could still sit on that throne. And just that's the kind of person that I've come to know, very humble, one of the smartest persons I know, and you can tell by the number of books that you see here. I don't know how he does it, but he seemed to just, it's like an assembly line. He just keeps writing and writing and writing. And we thank God for him. He's one of those members of our community that we can say that we're very proud of. Put your hands together for him. I'm just going to read to you some comments that have been made in regards to this latest book. And the first one, just give me a minute, please, says that this is an intimate portrait of one of the most important but unappreciated Pan-Africanists of the post-war period, whose intrepid activism linked to African peoples throughout the Atlantic world. Andre's penetrating biography of Rosie Douglas is a must-read account of the soul of African folk to vanquish imperialism, colonialism, and other forms of anti-Black exploitation and domination. And that is a comment from Wendell Nielaria Adicheti. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Another one says it's a long overdue assessment of the life and activism of the extraordinary Rosie Douglas, Andre's book captures the complexities of the man and the breadth of his achievements, giving him his rightful place among the firmament of the greats who have struggled for Caribbean and Pan-African liberation. And that is from Kate Quinn, Associate Professor in Caribbean History, University College, London. Another one, The MANTLE Struggle chronicles the astonishing life of Dominica's former Prime Minister, Rosie Douglas, one of the most extraordinary international political actors of the 20th century, who, despite hailing from a tiny outport in the Caribbean, became a hugely influential operator on the world stage. It's an illuminating portrayal of a son of privilege who was also a man of the people. Selfless in his commitment to uplift the wretched of the earth, he was a political revolutionary and anti-imperialist champion of global resistance movement. Imprisoned for his role in the biggest campus rebellion in Canadian history, Douglas was an unrepentant political pragmatist who counted John Diefenbaker, Pierre Trudeau, Nelson Mandela, Fidel Castro, Angela Davis, and Kwame Ture as mentors, associates, and comrades. This is a book of revelations and endless intrigue that was written by Adrian Harewood, journalist, associate professor, School of Journalism and Communication, Carleton University. To fully understand Canada's antagonism with Blackness and Black people, this biography of Rosie Douglas proves to be a necessary and important foundation. From student activist to Prime Minister of Dominica, Douglas's life is an example of transnational Black activism and deep insight into the central place of the Caribbean and its intellectuals in shaping the modern world. Irving Andre's account of Douglas's life is both instructive and heartbreaking. And this was by Ronald Watt, author of On Property, Policing, Prisons, and the Call for Abolition. Another one, from the Eastern Caribbean island of Dominica to Canada and back, Irving Andre's work has immediately become the benchmark by which both future biographies and political histories of the Caribbean, Black Canada, and Pan-Africanism will be measured. The complexity, movement, growth, and unwavering purpose of Rosie Douglas's life is brilliantly captured here in depth for the first time, thanks to the richness of archival work and wide-ranging interviews. It is a treasure trove for those wishing to learn more about the radical history of the Caribbean and Canada, and Douglas's often central place in these struggles for genuine decolonization and freedom across both time and space. This was written by Kevin Edmonds, Assistant Professor, Community Engaged Learning and Caribbean Studies, University of Toronto. Another one, The Mantle of Struggle, is a page-turner about the life and memory of Rosie Douglas, revolutionary activist, civil rights and Black power leader, visionary, and Prime Minister of Dominica. Irving Andre has done justice to Douglas by writing an insightful, lucid, and detailed book about this extraordinary and compelling Caribbean revolutionary, a vital contribution to Black, Pan-African, Canadian, and Caribbean history and studies. This work is tour de force, and I thank Irving Andre for it. And this was written by Dr. Afua Cooper, Killam Research Chair in African Diaspora History, Dalhousie University. Just put your hands together for all those. These are people who have obviously read the book, and this is what their take. And I'm pretty sure you are going to have your own comments that can be added to this in the hereafter. So I hope you'll all get your book and make sure that you encourage all your friends, your acquaintances, and everyone, because we are living in an age where our history is very important. our history is not being taught in the schools. So we have to become activists to make sure that our stories are told. And here is someone who's doing his part to tell our stories and to make sure that our legacy lives on so that our children can know the story of our life. We are not in the libraries in the school, but I am fighting to make sure that these books, like Justice Andre's book, that they get into the libraries, in the public library, in the schools, because our children need to know their roots. Thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. Abigail is from Jamaica. I'm honored to be given this opportunity to introduce the featured speakers. I first got to know Irving Andre very well as a student in Jamaica. And he's up here in Canada. He's someone who has done very, very well. And I will go right ahead and introduce Mr. Sheridan Gregoire, CEO, Q95 radio station from Dominica. Just kidding.
Well, good evening, everybody. I wanted to stand here just to ensure that, we can get Dr. Andre when he comes up, because we're live on Facebook and on YouTube, and we're live throughout the Caribbean on Q95 FM radio. So we're live on the internet. So I just want to be sure that we're getting him very clearly when he comes up here to speak. So all the other persons who are going to speak after me, I would be happy if you would speak from right here behind the podium, because the audio is coming straight through from the computer here. So I just want to say I'm delighted to be here. I'm very happy that Q95 is able to facilitate this broadcast for Dr. Irving Andre. Obviously, you all know him very well. He's a man of great integrity. And I think that Black Caribbean history is in good hands when it comes to Dr. Irving Andre. So I don't want to take up too much more time, because you have some illustrious other speakers who are going to address you tonight. I was very impressed with the first speaker here tonight. So I'm just going to hand over to Mr. Fortune to do the rest of the introduction. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheridan. Irving is a prolific writer. It is said that the pen is mightier than the sword. Never did I know the person I first met as a student in Jamaica who'd reached to that level, where he has written so many books about illustrious Dominican nationals. And I'll talk about them later on. But moving on, I'm going to introduce the Honorable Justice Kofi Barnes, Superior Court of Justice. Thank you.
The Mantle of Struggle, a biography of a black revolutionary, Rosie Douglas, by Irving Andre. I did not know that the guy right beside me wrote so many books. Rosie Douglas, son of Dominica, former Prime Minister of Dominica. He came to Canada at some point to study agriculture, and in fact, he was a member of the then Conservative Party, the Young Conservatives. And he was under the tutelage of the Prime Minister of Canada at the time. He went to Montreal to study political science, and by the late 60s, he had become an active civil rights supporter. Now, he's well known for something, at least in Canada, for something he did in 1969. In 1969, he helped lead a peaceful sit-in by the students in Montreal. And the reason why they had a sit-in was they wanted to protest racism. That peaceful protest turned into a riot. Rosie Douglas was identified as a ringleader. He was charged in Canada with a criminal offense, and he served 18 months in Canadian prison. He was deported from Canada in 1976. The proud son of Dominica began to participate in the political movements around the world. Some of the global political movements he was involved in included the Libyan-based revolutionary world Mahaba. He was a supporter of Nelson Mandela's African National Congress. And in Dominica, he led the movement for Dominica's full political independence from Great Britain. He served as a senator, a member of parliament, and also prime minister. And as you've heard, he viewed persons such as the Canadian Prime Minister, John Diefenbaker, also Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, as well as Nelson Mandela, Fidel Castro, Angela Davis, Kwame True as associates and mentors. Rosie Douglas, a courageous, principled, and complex man whose life draws strong feelings of condemnation or strong, amazing high praise, depending on one's worldview and political persuasion. But he lived a life that has many poignant lessons for humanity. He lived the life of a giant. Therefore, it's only fitting that another son of Dominica has taken on and completed the task of explaining the intricacies and lessons to be learned from such a memorable and impactful life. Andre Irving. He arrived in Canada at some point. He came through the US and he got a job. Actually, he was working the graveyard shift in a car dealership, car parts factory in Mississauga. This guy who was trying to survive worked for only 2 weeks. He got laid off. He was paid quite well. He was given a full $98 for his pain and suffering. Well, being the kind of guy he is, he decided to spend a full $69.95. Who does that? To buy a suit so that he can go for a job at the Workers' Compensation Board in Ontario. Andre, I think that's too much money to pay for a suit. You only made, what, $98? However, apparently the suit worked because the guy got a job. And somehow, he was always interested in law, so he went to Osgoode Hall Law School, and he graduated in 1988 as a lawyer. Then he became assistant crown attorney for the province of Ontario, and later he became defense counsel. In 2002, he became a judge of the Ontario Court of Justice. Now, I want you to know, it ain't easy for we Black people to become judges. It ain't easy to become a judge, period. And when you're Black, well, Lord help you. So the fact that this guy became a judge is no small feat. And when he was there, he served as local administrative judge at some point in Brampton. And in 2012, he was appointed to the Superior Court. Now, Andre, I've got a confession to make. I've been stalking you. You do not know. I've been stalking you for years because you have to understand. In 2002 became a judge. I was like, Lord God, I have to go become myself a judge. So after 2002, I followed you. 2004, you were there. You know, I was comfortable. And then I heard in 2012, you went to Ontario Superior Court. I'm like, what's going on? So 2013, I had to follow you. And as if it's not enough, I can't get rid of you. You're right beside me in the courtroom. Your office is right beside me. It's been there for years. Anyway, so he has his law degree. Guy is an intellectual. He got a master's degree in law. He has a PhD in law. Now, I do not know how many judges have got PhD in law. The job is tough enough. Why do you have time for this stuff? He has PhD in law. And Kathy, we know you are the real power behind the man. He has a lovely wife and 2 daughters. And I was talking to him recently, and I realized that the guy has written almost 20 books. Who does that? I'm apparently more than that. So the point is, so he's a wonderful guy. Yeah, that is true. Amazing guy. The big question is this: has he done a good job in terms of helping us understand and learn from a great son of Dominica, Rosie Douglas. Now, this is what we've heard. You've heard some of the stuff. Some of the reviews are, and I'll read some of them that we heard. The Mantle of Struggle chronicles the astonishing life of Dominica's former Prime Minister, Rosie Douglas, one of the most extraordinary international political actors of the 20th century. This is a book of revelations and endless intrigue. Another person also said, Andre's book captures the complexities of the man and the breadth of his achievements, giving him his rightful place amongst the firmament of the greats who have struggled for Caribbean and Pan-African liberation. Then there is more. Andre's penetrating biography of Rosie Douglas is a must-read account of the soul of African folk to vanquish imperialism, colonialism, and other forms of anti-Black exploitation and domination. Now, ladies and gentlemen, clearly, Evan Andre, has hit the ball right out of the park here. Mantle of Struggle is a must-read. It would not disappoint. Ev, you have many gifts, one of which is the gift of the pen. You have a way of writing that touches the human soul, that causes us as human beings to reflect, to learn, to improve, to try to be better. And my man, you've done it again. You've done it again in chronicling an important human life, the life of Rosie Douglas. So Ev, for that, we thank you and we wish you ongoing success. Best wishes, my friend.
Thank you very much. Rosie Douglas, I met once when he came up as a Prime Minister of Dominica to Toronto. And I was so impressed with him. He came with two other correspondents, Matthew Spelty and somebody, John Baptiste, both of them incidentally from Point Michel. I'm from Point Michel as well. So Rosie Douglas, one has to understand the courage of this man coming from Dominica in 1969 or thereabout to make that sacrifice to show up at that university to fight for justice, coming from a small island of Dominica. I know his family up here, and he's got that scholarship. And when Irving Andre wrote about him and his desire just to get justice for everybody, not only for Dominican, that speaks about the testament to this man. Talking about Irving Andre now, I wonder where he finds the time to do all that kind of work he's doing. I've often wondered, the man I knew, or I know as a student, later on, we were together at the Workers' Compensation Board, and it seems to me our paths are just straightened up together all the time. I'm here tonight to introduce this evening, another speaker, Faisal Mirza from the Superior Court of Justice.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is a true pleasure and honor to be here, to have a brief moment to speak with you about this important and incredible accomplishment of my colleague, my friend, my mentor. We call him Justice Andre. The people that look up to him sometimes call him Mr. A. It would be correct to call him Doctor. Many accomplishments in a storied career, and this book is another chapter in an impressive array of accomplishments over the past 30 years. A little story about myself. I've known Justice Andre for over 20 years. When I was embarking on the start of my career as a criminal defense lawyer, Justice Andre was embarking on his career as a judge. And I was looking for a mentor, a friend, a kindred spirit of sorts. Coming into the profession at that time, it was dominated by people that did not look like me, did not think like me. And so seeing someone like Justice Andre on the bench and learning about his important contributions as a defense lawyer made a huge impact on me and many of my colleagues that come from racialized backgrounds. It was an honor always to appear in front of him, to be able to advocate difficult issues, to know that someone understood the background of your clients, understood the importance of balance, of recognizing the safety of the community at the same time, and was prepared to do the right thing. And so it was always a pleasure to be in front of him. Fast forward 23 years, and now I have the honor and the privilege of being in the chambers next to him, to be able to go to him for advice, and to continue that mentorship relationship that has meant so much to me. And so, again, I'm very humbled and honored to be here. This biography about Roosevelt Douglas, affectionately called Rosie, a revolutionary, a man of integrity and intellect, resilience and perseverance, compassion and equality, a multi-talented leader, no doubt. Now, every person's journey in advancing human rights and civil rights is distinct. People come from different backgrounds, different experiences, different families. Many of you have had your own experiences with that struggle, and we all continue to struggle in that endeavor. So the parallels, the broad themes, I wish to congratulate again on this incredible contribution to what is correct understanding of Canada's history with civil rights and anti-Black racism throughout North America. For over 20 years, this story has obviously been told incrementally in the world and the justice system. It really is only beginning to be told. And so I look forward to the day that I will have the opportunity to continue to say that the only part missing is the audio. The voice, rich with texture and bass, the pleasure to hear recite this masterpiece. So again, congratulations. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Irving asked to say a few words today for the launching of yet another masterpiece by none other than our very own Dr. Irving, my friend, family, compatriot, mentor, and most importantly, my favorite author of all times. Through his publications, Dr. Andrew has taken us on yet another journey of discovery. And he invites us to reflect not only on our beloved island of Jamaica, but also on our own struggles here in Canada and in his latest book, The Mantle of Struggle, the biography of Black revolutionary Lucy Douglas, is no exception. This shadow is certainly very significant, and there is no doubt that the inspiration for writing this book emanates from a place of deep love and appreciation of country, of community, and culture, coupled with the commitment and the willingness to document our collective history. To me, this is reminiscent of the values of liberté, égalité, et fraternité that are so relevant and important to us all. So let us pause for a moment and contemplate on the question of equality, particularly as it pertains to Lucy's fight for oppressed people everywhere, and more specifically, Black and Indigenous peoples right here in Canada. So I can't help but draw on some parallels with his struggles for equality in education, notably his fight for students at George William University in Montreal back in the 1960s. And yes, let us fast forward to our present day. And we could say yes, it is clear that the struggle for equality continues even after navigating the institutions of higher learning. So while admittedly much progress has been done or has been made in society and education, while we recognize the importance of institutions of higher learning as the catalysts for personal growth and knowledge, we need to also acknowledge that despite the advances that have been made, the challenges and struggles persist, perpetuated by the systemic barriers, biases, and discrimination that many individuals, especially Black and Indigenous peoples, still face. Very often, among this myth of equity, especially given the precarious work situation of racialized and Indigenous faculty members in our universities. All these form part of the underlying themes explored in the book. And I have come to realize that Lucy Douglas, through his generous and charismatic spirit, his journey is in fact a true hero. One who has paved the way for students and educators, such as myself, to gain some measure of equality and respect in the education system, especially in post-secondary education. Now, having graduated with a PhD in education, I wholeheartedly would like the world, right? I would wholeheartedly say that the world is in need of fearless, freedom fighters like Ruth Douglas, who are willing to put their lives on the line for racialized and indigenous scholars, who are hired less often, who are less likely to be considered and granted promotions and tenure, who are underpaid and overworked, and consequently less valued. And so, through these various mantles of struggle, Andre sheds light on all these issues, offering insights as he aptly captures and documents Ruth's commitment to providing a voice to those who have been marginalized and underrepresented. There is no doubt that this work, through expert, riveting storytelling and thorough research, addresses and confronts the struggles for equality and richly contributes to the ongoing conversation while eliciting hope and encouraging positive change. So I'd like to conclude by congratulating Dr. Andre on his success and by offering my sincere thanks and appreciation for sharing this shadow with the world. And Nalita continue. The struggle continues. Merci.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. It's the first time I've seen you. It's an honor and privilege to accomplishment. We will introduce the author, Irving Andre. We will have Ms. Annie Dino, CEO, Executive Director, Knight Stable, and the lead of the Brampton Football in introduction. Please step in
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. As was mentioned, I'm the Executive Director, CEO of Knight Stable, as well as of Mountain Food House, the space that's hosting this event. I know many of you have shared the many accomplishments of I have known Irving more than half of my life without dating myself. And I want to talk about his community side as a community builder. It's awesome when we do incredible things. I think it's even more awesome when we're invested in the communities in which we live, work, and play. And Irving has done an incredible job of investing back into the community in which he lives. So I'm going to read his final, which is taken from the book that we're here to celebrate. So congratulations, Dr. Irving Andre. Justice Irving Andre is the author of The Century of Dominica, Strangers in Succession, British West Indies and Curacao, and the biographies of Franklin Barron, Dominica's first chief minister, Edward Oliver LeBlanc, Dominica's first premier, and Desmond McIntyre, Dominica's first surgeon. Between 1990 and 2002, Andre worked as a prosecutor for the Ontario Ministry of Labour, an assistant crown attorney in Brampton, Ontario, a criminal defense lawyer, and a vice president of the Ontario 2002, he was appointed as a judge in the Ontario Court of Justice, where he presided as the local administrative judge in Region Peel from 2010 to 2012. In 2012, Justice Andre was appointed to the Superior Court of Justice in Brampton, where he currently resides. It gives me immense pleasure and privilege to introduce to you Justice Dr. Irving Andre.
Let's say that this is clearly a day that the Lord has made, so we have to give thanks and rejoice. Why should we not rejoice when you have somebody distinguished here? When you have Justice Barnes, Justice Mercer, when you have Justice of the Peace Leader Formino from Boobies Land, when you have Justice of the Peace Charles from Downey, when you have illustrious community builders such as Margaret Taylor, such as Abigail and others, when you have veterans of the court system, when you have my family over there who assist me in happy because I still use a typewriter. When you have Louis Chen, who actually typed part of the manuscript. When you have Sandy Thomas, the veteran of the Federal Crown Prosecutor System, who's been a landmark in that institution. And I suggest if I have occasion to speak with her, she will have many about the struggle. You see, many people really believe that because some of us get the privilege, based on the sacrifices of the Rosie Douglas, to become us, aspire to become successes, judges, prosecutors, business managers, executive directors, CEOs, and the world is changing. They said the same thing in the 60s. But tout ça change. But we, like my broken French, who said really but we take inspiration, as I said, from the hard work of many people. I'm Italian in particular. I've known her since she was 5 or 6 years old, you figure out what the age is. Most of the folks here, I have been in the wilderness. And as I toiled through that wilderness, I said, no, what is the biblical phrase? No weapon shall form against you. Why? Because we have to continue those things. We cannot bury our heads in the sand and pretend that because we're smart, because we have some things that we are immune from these struggles and these pressures. If you're fooling anybody, you're fooling the man or the woman in the mirror. That is not right. So it was a privilege to address the illustrious life of Rosie Douglas well before our generation, going back to the 60s. This guy had the audacity of hope. Can you imagine? Gentlemen, I picked up people, I 300 square miles, picking up this phone and calling the Prime Minister, John Nathan Baker, in 1960, telling him I have applied to Berkeley University, which is not Louis to study to get a diploma in agriculture. Nobody has responded to me. What's going on? But within 2 weeks, he was on a plane. John Nathan Baker sent a representative of his office to Greece. Taking him in a limousine to work. Here's a guy who's never been to Canada. That is the reception he brought. He was literally mentored by a different Baker, but he became infected with the radicalism and the struggle for civil rights and equality. And he turned that promise in life because it represents almost the epitome of what we can call bourgeois aspiration. To be courted by the Prime Minister of Canada, to be made a young member of the Conservative Youth Association, to be a member of the annual conventions in Ottawa, to be feted and dined by the David Bakers in the Prime Minister's office, and you were not in Canada for 2 or 3 years. That was of a kind of fearless courage, and a fearless confidence in oneself and one's ability. So it was somewhat natural that after being nursed, after being birthed and nursed in the radical in the 60s, this struggle for human equality the struggles in Montreal. In the 60s, when students at the universities were denied opportunities to live in university housing or housing at the university, they were told no, nothing is available. And they had to set up schemes by sending white students to ask for the same positions. And oh, voila, this is when domestics had to struggle in the 60s. And they were told that right from the early actually high willing to transition. It was Les Autres, the others. They were other. And in every nook and cranny of Montreal, you have rather interesting names like Côte de Nègre, La Ville de Nègre. Nègre is French for nigger. And you have to contend with that on a daily basis. Interviews in 1965, including Roosevelt, bank managers who said, no, we can't hire blacks in managerial positions because the white people will not feel well for a black person who comes and get money. And in all the instances of medical professions, they would say that they can't hire black professionals because no white person really would want a black professional to treat them. I knew that this would happen again. But this is the context in which we have to struggle for the and what was specifically that event which Judge Brown talked about was when 6 West students decided to launch a complaint because the white professor was giving them less grades in biology than their white counterparts. How did they know? Because they copied, they had a white student copy line for line and word for word the answers for biology examination. And that student, the white student, submitted straight. The black submitted his own. And the whites, black student, got to see something and the white student. And even when they lodged that protest, the school tried to whitewash as one would expect in the 60s. And for them, no discrimination didn't exist, it's just an administrative exist. And the student basically took action not physically, but protest. And then the Montreal police intervened. To the further intervention, the computer center was broken, $1 million they were fired, students were bundled up, and the Montreal papers headlines left the legal square. So that someone had to pay. Someone had to pay for this transgression. Someone had to pay for damaging the perception that Montreal is this land, this wonderful edifice, this city on the hill, where black grapes like Club Callaway. Some of these folks had nursed. There were jazz clubs where black musicians had gone and petted. There was, as you know, the Montreal Expo in '67. So there's this wonderful majoritarian perspective that Montreal was free of this contaminant coloring. And the actions of these students exposed the lie to the reality. And someone had to pay the piper. And the person who paid the piper essentially, not just he alone, but the harshest penalty after he was convicted, not of the fire, but of damaging, preventing people from using the property. And bear in mind, and we detailed all the trials, what had transpired in the trial. There was a jury trial, and just one anecdote, because I don't want to spend too long. When they selected a jury, there was no black person in the jury, I was surprised. And after the selection was made, one juror told the judge, oh, essentially, Your Honor, I'm afraid I might be prejudiced against black people. The judge told the defendants and the lawyers, that's okay, too late, I can't change it. So that is the jury of the peers that these defendants were exposed to. I explained the results in the case and so on. Rosie appealed his conviction and his sentence unsuccessfully, but from 1971 to 1976, he was very much involved in activism in Toronto. He joined every group you can think of. When Angela Davis came to Canada in 1975, he was one of the members of the delegates which picked her up from the Toronto airport and brought her to the University of Toronto, where she spoke to hundreds of students and so on. But Rosie was a marked man, because what did he do? He forged links with the indigenous community. They actually made him an honorary elder. And for that, he committed the ultimate sin because they feared that he posed a threat to the state. And that was the basis that he was deemed an emergency, a threat to national security. And his deportation was inevitable. And that's exactly what happened. I haven't even told you about the machinations of the RCMP. I haven't even told you the fact that they actually went so far as to put chemicals in his gas tank so that to incapacitate his car. So he will use the car of their agent, who they imported from the FBI in the United States to keep tabs on him. I haven't told you those things. There are other things I haven't told you. A judge complained during the course of hearing the appeal that the government was actually sending messages to them, interfering with the judge, the cause of justice, by trying to get the judge to deal with the case quickly so they can deport him. And there was basically a great degree of support, overwhelming, a tsunami of support from all groups, not just black but white, even from the NDP. I say even because politically it was almost sacrilege to get involved with someone who's going to be the deportees. So in a sense, many persons helped him, but many persons maintained their distance. Who wants to be friends and associates with someone who has been targeted for deportation? But it is a measure of the man that even after being deported in 1976, he didn't retreat into a metaphorical or symbolic crab hole. He didn't take solace or hide from view, because that is the ultimate stigma if you're an immigrant, to be deported. Are you crazy? So what he did when he left, they took him in chains. A couple of RCMP accompanied him on the plane, and they didn't even want to release the handcuffs so he could use the washroom. So he went into the washroom with two RCMP officers in tow. And because they refused to release him, suffice it to say, as we say in Jamaica, he did a number one on all the RCMP officers. Nicely. So he went to Dominica, and he went to the Dominica at a time when the whole political firmament was alive with talk and about political independence. And he became one of the seminal figures in Dominica's achievement of independence in 1978. And he contested the election unsuccessfully in 1980, and in that same year or thereabouts or sometime after, he gravitated to Libya, where he became the chairperson of the Libya International called the MATHABA. And the function of the MATHABA was to provide financial support on a clandestine basis to liberation struggles all over the world: South Africa, Africa, Latin America, indigenous communities in Canada, the United States, and Australia. And as head of the MATHABA, he was able to persuade the Libyan authorities to dedicate millions of funds to give persons involved in struggle, human rights struggle, to go to Libya for training. Some people would say indoctrination, but basically to enliven the struggle for self-satisfaction, for liberation. And I can tell you, based on some of the reports that I've talked about in the book, he was the one instrumental in convincing the Libyan authorities that the ANC should be supported, as opposed to the movement of Steve Biko. Some of you, probably those at the back, may be too young to know the name of Steve Biko, the African student who was killed in a jail in South Africa by the apartheid forces and so on. And Nelson Mandela was so appreciative of that help that when he was sworn in Honorable 94, I believe, as the head of South Africa, Rosie sat proudly on the head table with Nelson Mandela. And it's not because he looked like an African, but he probably did, but it's because of the assistance that he gave to them. And he assisted many struggles, many liberation movements in Latin America, some of you may know, and we detailed and documented all of them. And as you know, Libya was a pariah, and thanks to Reagan in the 80s, he was called the Mad Dog, you may recall. And we know what happened to him. And after what happened to him, Libya deteriorated into chaos. And that is what happened. But at the same time that they were demonizing and animalizing these leaders and so on, the United States, historically, if you're familiar with it, has been actively supporting many very repressive regimes all over the world, but particularly Latin America. You just name it, half a dozen in Haiti. Trujillo in the Dominican Republic. Fulgencio Batista in Cuba before he was overthrown by Castro. Arbenz, Guatemala, and other leaders in Latin America. So while they categorically stigmatize these folk as being a threat, communist threat, they're propping up regimes that brutalize, particularly Latin America. And those of you who know anything about history, you know about the shenanigans of Capita. So that what Rosie did, along with others, not just he alone, basically was an antidote to the support for these repressive regimes, particularly in Latin America, where there has been so thousands of murders and missing people. It is a history which is well known. Rosie also gives scholarships, obtains scholarships, Cubans to go to study Cuba, medicine, agronomy, whatever it is, hundreds of scholarships through his efforts and his links with the Castro regime. He also had Dominicans go to Libya. And again, I documented some of them. And every socialist international, every socialist organization, he had links with them. He had a strong link with the IRA, for God's sake, fighting against the British to achieve a mode of self-actualization. So this guy stands out. He may not have had the intellectual strength of, for example, a C.L. Irving or an A.B. Caesar or a Marcus Garvey. But in terms of practice, in terms of what he did, his achievements surpassed to a significant degree all these black intellectuals, particularly from the Caribbean, who have made an indelible mark on the history and consciousness of the history. So today we stand in honor of this man. Obviously, he had his faults, mind you. But as the Bible says, let those who are without sin cast the stone. And today, at no other time in our history is his legacy more important. Yeah. Those of us who are from the Caribbean. Those of us who are Caribbean, there's an attack against some of these small islands because the mode of operational these days is to sell passports, the very soul of the nation. And unfortunately, reports have shown that they're selling it to the most despicable of individuals, those inflamed regimes, oppressive regimes, even Russian oligarchs. In fact, not too long ago, a couple of months ago, the British actually imposed visa restrictions on Dominicans because Russians who had been denied entry into England gained entry because they possessed Dominican passports. A notorious former minister of Nigeria called Maduike, who was alleged to have stolen billions of dollars from Nigeria. I know that doesn't happen in Nigeria, but billions of dollars. When they came to arrest her, she basically told them in Dominican parlance, I have a Dominican diplomatic passport. Another Italian mobster fellow, when he was about to be arrested in the Virgin Islands, the same thing. He has a Dominican passport. But I think the Italian and the French authorities said, that's not to help you be arrested. So this is unfortunately the crisis that we face as a region. Dominica celebrates its 45th anniversary as we speak. And the whole question is, to what extent can we significantly celebrate independence when it seems to me that we're hell-bent on selling our families for a less of a cut. So that we here, we have to be conscious of those things, just as we are conscious of the fact that even while we enjoy a little success right here, there are still forces, quite frankly, who are uncomfortable with the process or progress that we've made. There's still persons here, they may not say, they may not know your personal history, who've been denied opportunities for these unconscious reasons. Everybody loves you. Smiling face of racism. We love you. When it comes to abortion, there is a systemic myopia. So the task of our generation is to chip at it day after day. Because every journey begins with one small step. And the universe will not change tomorrow. At one point, unless there's a tsunami in the offing, which I don't wish on anybody, but we have to make every effort in our own individual ways to strike a blow against this institutional myopia, this reluctance to give us what is due to us, and this reluctance to give us the credit that we deserve. When you, most of you, you've gone to university, you've succeeded, look at objectively how they treat, not everybody, but it happens to often your counterparts who've gotten the same accreditation as you. For some reason, you're told, I've had person say, oh, you have an honorary PhD, honorary. I say, well, I'm not honoring you, I'll go and get it too. All that happens. And it's the microaggression. Little comments that I tell you. Because nobody calls you black now, nobody calls you nigger. But this struggle has gone from the time it was in the 60s and it continues. And again, as I said, we have an obligation without any apologies to anyone to take advantage of every opportunity, any opportunity of education, any opportunity of upliftment in this community. It is, we have no other option, quite frankly, because we should not feed into anyone's perception. Because in the 60s, they were saying that black students are not doing so well. The 6 persons who complained were not doing well because they're afraid of the cold. That's what they would say. They're afraid of the cold because they can't deal with the cold. But we can deal with the cold just as the colonizers could deal with the heat in the air while they were taking over the land and the minerals from the dump and so on. So we stand here, we are privileged, because let's face it, there are thousands and hundreds of thousands of our people, racialized, who wish they had an opportunity where they could come, and even with every setback, even every impediment, just to put all that aside, and probably to echo the words of you two in that song, with or without you, I will achieve my goals. I don't care what you say, that's your business, but you're not going to stop. You might, but as Bob Marley says too, when one door is closed, it's not that another door is open, but you open another door.
That's right.
And that is the message of hope we have to take to our people. As I said, I've been privileged. I've been in Brampton for donkey years. I mean, sorry, almost 40 years. I've seen people like Marjorie. She's dying in her hair green now. And Marjorie Taylor, so Lucinda Slowly, who had to leave for another engagement. I've seen the work they've done in Bingo. They built a multi-million non-profit house apartment in Brampton over 2 decades ago. They run a bingo, the mentoring, they're unsung heroes. You look at the Brampton staff, they don't see those things. Yes, they've gotten some credit, but as a general proposition, what gets the news is the last rod, last breaking. That is what subliminally conveys the message that these are others who have been on destroying and undermining that settled society that we have. So every success is a blow against that type of majoritarian perspective, and that explains the significance of Rosie, because, and he's not just him, and those who took up arms, not so much arms in terms of weapons, but in terms of the moral courage to say, no, we're not going to buy in this view that all is well in the state of Denmark or Montreal. We're going to take this. And whether we know it or not, we continue to benefit from the stand taken by those men. Not everybody can do what we did, but in our own individual way, we can strike a blow against those stereotypical attitudes that continue to suppress and continue to hold us in thraldom. So as I stand, I've been privileged in a sense. I have, as I said, I've gone to a few universities here and there, and I've been blessed by a fortunate wife and daughters. I would like them to type a little more typing for me, but I'm fortunate that I have a sense of history, personal history, institutional history, because in my life, that has been a very inspirational thing that have continued to propel me, and it will continue to do so, because again, we cannot rest on our laurels. Not when you know that tomorrow you can still news that you have a stage 4, not just stage 4 income, but something more debility, something which can rob you of your health freedom. So in my view, the struggle has to continue. And we have a role to play in that struggle. If you want to take that perspective that some of I'm not like them, nobody trusts me like that. And if you want to take solace in that negative type of thinking, that type of naivety, then you're entitled to have it. But I told my daughters from day one, success is your event. At school, you will meet you have to deal with certain attitudinal challenges, not just from teachers, but also from students who believe that somehow you are all sexualized people who have no interest in higher learning, no interest in higher study. One lawyer once told me 5 years ago, how come so many of the girls have babies? So I tell her, how come so many young black women are unemployed and denied certain opportunities? But persons see what they want to see. They don't see the connection between poverty and dependency and having children and being on that. They do believe, many persons, unfortunately, and we have to grapple with these things, that what we have is a poverty of values, which is kind of ironic. Because in the United States, the academic studies show that disproportionately persons of West Indian origin excel, not just when compared to African Americans, but all the indigenous groups, all the racialized individuals. So we should never accept that kind of negative, stereotypical, pernicious type of categorization. We have to strike a blow with everything we do. You are ambassadors, you're all ambassadors. You don't have to be poor like me, but you're still ambassadors. And as I stand before you, I stand someone who, quite frankly, try to do a little writing. It's an antidote, as I explain sometimes to Kofi and to Pastor against the grind of what we do for a living, and against those things that somehow make you say that if you explode, you are just belittling yourself. You just have to take it, but you continue to forge ahead, because as Dr. Eric Williams, former Prime Minister of Trinidad, once said, success. And probably my mind is just warped, but many of the court staff who would speak to me, I would tell them one thing. Can you imagine when you get your accreditation, your degree, and you go to them and they have to look at you? The joy you will get when you could see them squirming in their seats. The repressed resentment which cannot be hidden. And the satisfaction you get. My mind is just too But that, in my view, is something that and you have children. Tell them about the 22 universities in this place, about the 50 colleges. I learned to cook bacon by looking at YouTube. You don't know what bacon is, it's probably just as well. It's chicken, the necks of chicken. So there's no impediment to learning. That's my point. When I did the postgraduate, I never went into the Osborne Hall Law School, library. When I did my first degree, I was there every day. So everything is right there. But what you have to ask yourself is the determination there? Is the ability to make sacrifice there? Is the ability or the determination or the fortitude to forge ahead irrespective of the hurdles or impediments? Is that also there? And we have to make sure it is there. So with those words, I thank you for your presence. I wish I could claim credit for all that I've done, but I can't. Fortune earlier made a reference to working at the Workers' Compensation Board. It's through him I got that job after being fired after 2 weeks. There's one last antidote. Even at the Workers' Compensation Board, when I resigned to go to law school, and I came back during the Christmas holidays, because the supervisor said she's going to recommend me. One supervisor told me after 2 weeks, I am not going to recommend that you should be rehired. I told her you cannot do so. She said, yes, I can. I said, okay, you sound like Obama. Go ahead, yes, you can. I wrote a letter addressed to Dr. Robert Irving, a law degree and a medical degree. He was a former Ontario Minister of Government, but then the chairperson of the European. And I set out everything. I set out how long I've been there. I set out my progress reports. I set out how this woman had treated me. I copied it to every manager at the WCB. 2 months later, I got a letter from him, and I found out afterwards he had called her in his office. She cried like a child. And he told me in that letter, you can work at the WC anytime you want. I worked there until a couple of weeks before I was called to the bar in 1990. And when I went back, the summer of 1985, I told them, put me to work under her supervision. Because that face, I don't want to forget it at all. Thanks to my friend Fortune, he would rub it in your face. He's not a nice fellow. Every degree, every success, every promotion, he would go back and tell them. He just got his life. He's not with the Superior Court. He would go back and tell them. That itself is something to discuss. I'm not trying to be cynical. I'm not trying to make you look under every table for negativities, but I'm just trying to make you understand the realities of existence. Who wants to deny it? As we say in the area, that do yourself. That's your business. But to be armed is to be prepared. And we're not talking about taking arms in terms of guns and all this stuff. We're talking about mentally armed and determined. And understanding your history, understanding what the domestics had to deal with in the 60s, understanding the struggle in the 1970s, understanding even today the invisible challenges that confront us. So as we navigate, as we walk through the valley of death, we should fear no evil. Amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justice Irving, a man of such intellect, such simple, who loves to help people, and he carries a thought with him, and where he walks, the light shines. And he's written so many books. I remember once he wrote one about I'll just pull it up here, Strangers in Sufism, British West Indies in Curacao, 1943. 1963. That is a very historical book. Growing up in Pointe Michel in the 50s and 60s, a lot of people used to go across to Aruba and Curacao to work in the oil field. Irving was born in Curacao as a result of that. My wife was born in Curacao as a result of that. And it just shows you, when I go back to Curacao on a visit, I met people from St. Lucia. Such a historical perspective. And he's written so many other books. Like a catalog of these should just go in each school in Dominica, so that our students can read about the author and the history. And before, we used to depend so much about foreign authors, and now we have our own local author who can tell us about our history. I can say a lot more, but he's just the man I know. I mean, I knew his father coming from Portsmouth when I was a student working in customs. He's married to Kathy Nee Bertrand, whose father is from Portsmouth. There's a connection. And it's just, they were married in Canada. I knew, as I said, I knew him in Jamaica. I came to Canada, then he came to Canada, and then the journey just began. I am just following behind him. I am just recognizing the quality of a man we have. You see, and this is me, you know, you love to appreciate people's abilities. And what they have accomplished. And this is a man, I can tell you, he's done a lot, not for himself, but for everybody else he's touched. Thank you very much, Irving. Now the floor is open to questions and comments. Anybody can feel free to come up and ask questions, and I'm sure Irving will be able to give an answer. I'll ask the first question, just to Irving. As a student who came to Jamaica from Dominica, you studied history, and you got the first-class honors. In those days, just getting the first-class honors is a mighty accomplishment, quite frankly. in the curriculum. What inspired you to write?
Well, the inspiration was quite profound in my way. My father never went to university, but he went to Jerusalem. He was an avid collector of books and a voracious reader. Now, when we came back to Dominica, I was about 61, 62, still very young. But as I grew up, I saw those books, and I realized that our little termites and cockroaches probably were appreciating them more than us. And at the end of every work day, he would sit or lie on his bed with a cigarette smoke and tendrils of smoke and drifted off upwards. And then he would have a book. And he would meticulously cover each book with a brown paper. And that is where I was attracted to the written word. And I have never looked back since. It's been a liberating force in my life. And at what we call the sixth form college, which was an advanced grade 13 for those who witnessed and birth in the education system here. I mean, I studied economics, history, and English. And we had to literally forage for research materials. And I was fortunate that I got through the 3 subjects I did and to get a scholarship to study. But when I went to Jamaica, there was almost an oasis compared to where the aridity that I had been nursed on in terms of my advanced studies. And I just took advantage of it because I said the only way I can get a scholarship to do a master's or a higher degree was to do well. And so despite the periodic distractions on campus, in terms of going to church every day, you know, I made it my business to read more than everybody else. And from then I always said I may meet somebody who's smarter, but no one would be better prepared. So when I submitted my papers, there was reference to articles written by scholars from the United States, England, from the library I got, which the professors had never talked about. So that gave me the edge. And as I said, once I realized that, look, I can hold my own, that itself was a liberating thing, because much of this is mental. When you're being exposed to comments such as how many donkeys does Dominica have, you know, asking you, when folks are asking you very silly questions, particularly questions from some students from some islands, I will not name those islands, and you start getting A's and so on. You walk with your head in and you say you can hold your own. And I realized that was the only key. We were not poor, but we were not rich. There were 7 of us. I was in number 4, in the middle, invisible to all. So I knew that my father could not afford to send me to do postgraduate studies. So I knew the only way I could get through was by the sweat of my brow. And that is a lesson that I've learned since then. You know, by the sweat of your brow. Because we were taught it's only a few students can excel. That's a big lie. That's a misconception. If every student receives an opportunity and he or she is prepared to work hard, he or she can achieve. And that's a lesson of liberation all our children have to be exposed to. You know, the kingdom belongs to all of us. We are not the hewers of wood or drawers of water. We can do more if we so choose. But the critical point is we have to choose to do more. We can't just accept the stereotypical views. And unfortunately, it is something which is inculcated right in your school. Why do you think that for many years there were studies showing that black students are being steered into certain types of categories?
Streaming.
Streaming. And the stream they're talking about is not the one. More insidious. The stream they're talking about is directing you in some dead-end type of activity. And then you cry and you wonder, why is it that our students get involved in the criminal justice system? Because they were not given a fair shake. And those of us who were nurtured in the Caribbean, at least, we did not have to contend with the phenomenon streaming. We had to contend with the realization that if we were prepared to plow the soil, we will reap the rewards of that soil. And that is the lesson that we have to continue to give to our children. So when I blundered in at the University of the West Indies, the plan had been set in place already, that I'm going to take advantage was 125 pounds. I became a long distance runner. Runner, man. But anyway, so I did what I had to do. See the spangled reds running up the side of the Jamaican hill. And on the day I represented, there were little houses, Irving House. But to me, it was a matter of empowerment. To stand my own, to stand my ground against those students from some of the big islands who were so quick to make you, well, there's prejudice in the islands, to make you remember who you are. You're from little Tidbit Island. As I said, I will not make reference to certain islands, but that is the perception. And it was a sense of joy. Whether on the, I was a long distance runner, 5,000, 3,000, 5,000, 40 feet. So it was a sense of exhilaration that I was able to hold my own and let it feel. Now the only thing I can run is my mouth, sorry. Let it feel and the academic. I said, I'm no lesser than you. I'm not great, but I'm no lesser than you. And if you put us on the same battleground with the same resources, I will out-resource you because I will go beyond the boundary that you're not prepared to go. And that's what happened. I got a little prize from the University a few years ago. And I met a student from one of the bigger islands. Yeah. I didn't tell her that in Dominican Republic, but I said yes. Because she was also one who competed for the gold medal. And she was told that one of the small islands to So I said yes, it's Miri. But that is, in my view, what you have to use to prepare you. The fact that you can achieve, you are no lesser than anybody else. That's right. Irrespective of your accent, irrespective of your complexion. As long as you're prepared to fight the fight. You will not win any battle, but it's a long haul. You may lose a race, but you'll win the battle. Come on. And that's the bottom line. Yeah. So I have no magic. I have no magic formula. But someone, when I came here, I was hungry. I knew who I am. I knew where I had to go. You know, I faced a lot of racism. That is one of the reasons I decided I ain't staying here. I will not apply again, because you see, I'd applied for the United States and I got accepted, but I worked 1 year. I said, no, I'm going to reapply. When I got my little position, I was happy, because after that 1 year, I bought a car of Sunbird. We got an apartment in Mississauga. Carrying this ubiquitous black, Mr. G, that's before. These black bins on Friday night, jumping on the bus, going to the wonderful, expensive, and luxury stores like Byways, Baggage North Hill Farm, coming back on the black cabin on the bus, walking the 150 yards to the apartment, 6th floor, I think. I paid my dues. Yes. But I was prepared to pay it because I could see the end of the journey. Come on. See, we can't be too preoccupied with the daily hardships. You have to look at the journey. Yes. Yes. You buy a house, you buy a fixer-upper, somebody will say, what is that? This is crazy. Yeah. Whatever old house you buy. But what they don't know, you can see it. You have the vision of it, nicely painted, probably renting a unit or two. You know, that's what you see. They might see the rust in Galvin, they might see the broken windows, but you're not seeing it. You're seeing the dream, and you're seeing what you're working towards. And that is what we always have to do, look at the long haul. It's as simple as that. And sometimes when a door refuses to open, you kick it up, but if you wear the cheap shoes I have, don't stand there enough. So, it's no secret. There's no secret to talk. It's just that, as I said, it's the right attitude. Not even a matter of intelligence. My view, if you're hungry enough, you can achieve whatever you set yourself to achieve. That's the lesson of redemption that we have to be teaching our folks. You can look at the Tony Charleses or the Odidas or the Justice Barnes or Justice Faisal or the Annie Binos and those. but again, you keep your eyes on the prize. And that's what we have to pound in the heads of some of these people. You keep your eyes on the prize. You get 100, you soup it up, don't ask me why, and then you lose it in 2 or 3 months. Don't ask me how. What type of success is that? The success we want is success which is enduring. Success which can be transmitted from one generation to another. Not the fleeting success that speaks to, quite frankly, a kind of vanity. That is not worth fighting for. But success that is tangible, success that is long-lasting, and success that is transferable or transmittable. That is what will sustain us. Put it in fortune. And it has sustained you too. Look at you. You're successful, you're wearing Gucci jacket. His daughter actually contested for a councillor seat in Scarborough and won. Yes. Doesn't mean I'm going to be in Scarborough, but that is a success. Because we cannot just be content to just remain in our own little spaces. We have to take our place. And that is happening slowly but surely. And again, his generation or his daughter is one of those persons on the vanguard of that movement to be in leadership positions. That is the challenge for the next generation. So to me, I'm just content to eat that cheesecake and drink wine and mention that. But they have to be content. So, I thank you. Right.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question of Andy. Very usually, you try to protect my age, right? Limited ideas about families. I know more about novel families, but you. Okay. But here's the thing, I did not go to Mola. Right? And those days you were there. So people like, this happens to be in governor of the Central Bank. You might know Dwight Bennett.
Yeah.
The big first.
Yeah.
Dwight Bennett?
Yeah.
Dwight Bennett. Right? Good friends. Dwight Bennett. I was in St. Augustine. But there are a couple of names there that I don't know whether you picked up in some of your books. This man, Gary Granger.
I know the name, yeah. Oh, absolutely. In fact, he's mentioned in this book.
Right. Now, Gary's, and at that time also there was a Bill Revere.
Oh, absolutely.
And
He's also mentioned
in the book.
He was called Macandal Dagger. The black hole name in 1737.
Lloyd Best.
Lloyd Best, the economist. Yeah,
Exactly. Lecturers, both lecturers at UW. But here's the thing, that's where I was going. In the early 70s, that is why I was trying to protect my age. I didn't want to say that. That's why
that's okay.
Yeah. So when I got there, Gary Granger was the president of the Students' Guild. And every single day, almost every day, students were always just dancing, horses were riding, all that. A lot of them were very active time. I don't know how much we that. I, in fact, got involved with the politics on the local campus. And I succeeded Gary as the president of Students' Guild. Oh, yes, and guys like Martin Draper, Russell and Dance, who died in the soldiers. Right? So I just wanted to see how much of this period, not the Jamaica aspect of the student campus, but the Trinidad aspect of the student campus, instead of how much of that is become.
You will be happy to know that I made a fairly significant reference. It's called the Black Power Movement. And what happened at Sir George Williams University in '69 played a significant role in basically getting students sensitized about questions about exploitation, global exploitation. In fact, the gentleman that Mr. Gregoire, I should indicate to you, not only is he the CEO of the Q95, but he was also an industrialist in the 1970s. He had a garment factory. He made a tremendous contribution. He was one of those who founded what is known as the World Creole Festival in Dominica during the late 90s. So Mr. Gregoire wears many hats, to be quite frank with you. One big back pocket, but still many hats. But no. Rosie, in fact, it's interesting the name he mentioned. He was, when Rosie died in 2000, Basil Pandey, who at some point was Trinidad's prime minister, he gave a speech in the Trinidad parliament indicating that people have underestimated the influence of Rosie on people like Geddes Granger, who changed his name at some point, and the struggle for Black Power in Trinidad in the early 1970s, also in some of the other islands. But you're absolutely correct. I explored it significantly because typically when we speak or when we write or read about West Indian history, we speak about the history of the larger island. And I explored to a relatively significant degree the impact of people like Rosie and others on what happened in the West Indies in the early 70s. The whole revolution, and right now it's interesting to hear the second generation, my daughters. You may have remembered, some of you, that movie, The Kink in My Hair. That has been a phenomenon, a removal or the maintenance of the kink since the 1970s. And in the early 1970s, when persons like Rosie and company came back, there was a ritual women went through. I mean, now some of these young people, they pass a perm, some fancy perm, or whatever they call it, in their hair, some chemical, they become straight. But growing up, the ritual was passing an iron comb in your hair, straight. Some people with colds, some women would get burnt. And in the islands at that time, there were distinctions based on good hair and bad hair. You know? And the Black Power Revolution changed that to a significant degree because women started sporting afros. And the whole business about the kink in your hair was no longer a debilitating kind of mark, a disfiguring mark. It became something to be celebrated. It was almost a revolution of sorts. And I also talked about the Black Writers Convention in 1968, but we don't have to go through all that now. But these were very liberating movements in the minds and in the consciousness of Black persons who lived in Canada in the 60s and 70s and in the West Indies, because there was an increasing acceptance of your reality. That the fact that your complexion doesn't mean you have the mark of the beast. The fact that you have kinky hair doesn't mean that you have bad hair. What mattered was who you are. And that struggle still continues, because now we have the phenomenon of colorism, where a person such as me, where they would have what they call black or red, are perceived by some persons with a majoritarian perspective that it is safer to give me a position than someone in the darker complexion. We may pretend it doesn't exist, but it is alive and well. And I'm one of the first persons to tell you. So that if someone who, like myself, who have what might be a radical view, it's almost looked at as a betrayal, because we've accepted you. It's a safe one, because you're like us. Or you might get patronizing comments. You're not like that. You're like one of us. He gave a brilliant speech at a court function a few months ago, and he said point blank to some of our colleagues, "I'm not treated like you," or what I may be paraphrasing what he said. But that, in my view, is the reality you probably try to capture. Irrespective of organized wrong, people bring you to court, politicians that want to carry your book, you tell them no, that's not it. You buy into this notion of superiority. When you go to Walmart, it's just by coincidence, someone is still looking at you. And it's not because they're admiring your clothes. They're trying to see what you're trying to see. So, or being self-assured because of their what we've achieved, you ain't fooling anything. So, we have to keep that reality in mind without talking too loud. I think, I think that's about it.
Just one question. My daughter is a school board trustee. So I just want to make it. Mr. Kwamino Odida, could you step up and say something about Irving? You've known him for a long time.
As I listened to the introduction of Dr. Irving Andre, I'm reminded of some of the times that we did some work in Brampton with the youth. It used to be described as a youth quake. And the youth quake essentially was bringing Black young people together. We held this on a Saturday, and the time was between 10 to 2. The resource that the facility we were using was in fact booked up by other users in that area. And the principals in that school, in that area, was responsible for organizing Black youth. What you must know is that the Black youth came and didn't want to come. But they came because the teacher encouraged them, and the teacher promised them sandwiches and good lunch. They came for the sandwiches and the good lunch. And rather than leaving at 12 o'clock, they wanted to leave not until 4 o'clock. And the reason being is that they had issues to deal with in this community that we somehow thought we had already dealt with and addressed when we came in. Today, November the 4th, is when I came to Canada, 1972. Wow. And as I listened just now to Dr. Andre, it seemed to me, thank you, it seemed to me that we're still talking about ourselves. Yes. We're still talking about our aspirations and our struggles. And what is interesting about this, we have not stopped doing it. If you look around the hall here, this is a classroom in its own right, with principals and teachers and educators and justices of the peace. We have not stopped. We have not become frightened or intimidated or scared by what they have had to offer us and what they throw us. Because I come out of Guyana with bauxite, all the bauxite wealth came into Canada, Montreal, and Vida. What they did is to transfer that resource, which is now being converted into oil, as you're hearing it, into Canada through alcohol. And when I came, I'm a first-class welder by profession, and I was asked by a very happy would-be employer why I left that cold, that hot country to come to this cold country. And I smiled, he was right, that's silly behavior. I said, no, I came to see where my wealth ended up. I came to see where my Canada to my money. I came to see some life insurance, and more than all, I came to see Montreal or Vida. But that was my meeting much earlier with Rosie Douglas. He came in and he introduced us to Canada in a way that underlined anything that we understood about the snow. You know, people seem to be throwing snow and playing snow. When I came and I couldn't find the snow because I was trying to find parts of my body. Everything was seized and I couldn't find them. I wouldn't tell you what I couldn't find. Please use your imagination. The things you can't find when you're cold. I couldn't find them. And I was very young and I should have been able to find them. They were not there. There was the sun, and I loved the sun, and I went out looking like this. Today I'm still dressing up because I'm still cold. So we have to remember that when we listen to Dr. Irving Andre, we listen to those stories about ourselves. We listen to the classroom once again. We listen to ourselves becoming students and a child once again. We listen to employers who told us, forget your experiences. Do you have Canadian experience? Get over it. I'm a first-class welder. Get over it. I'm trained as a secretary and as a clerk in the college. Get over it. They don't do it now. I have a PhD in industrial sociology, a Canadian scholar, an author writer. You know what I ask you, so? You speak so well. Where did you learn to speak? Yeah. The only reason why I speak so well is because all the other languages I had, you took them away from me. In fact, I think you're embarrassing me by saying, of all the languages and multicultural, I only know one language. Dr. Irving Andre, all that it is what you must be told, this is book number 14. And I keep asking myself, at what point do you keep inviting us to say, come, just have a big party, you're tired. But you know, you work well. Kathy, you know, I must single you out, you know, that special treat you give me on a Sunday morning with the bake and the saltfish, things that you borrow from Guyana. but your hospitality and your support is enduring. And Irving understands that very well when we go at your place, at Irving's place. Not only do we go into a library and a museum, we go into a love and a friendship. And for all of us here, I know you know him in different ways. I understand Dominica, and I asked myself, a few fella asked me when I told him I was coming to a book launch, he said that man's still writing about Dominica. He said that small country, what else he could be writing about? Well, I'm going to take 2 books, one for me and one for him, and let him pay for his book for that insult. I thank you. Please, let us give Dr. Andre.
Dr. Pamina Odila, lovely, lovely, inspiring. The floor is open. Anybody who wishes to say something, please come up. Don't be shy. And I've been just told that there's some refreshments, and we've been here for a little while, so I think it's time the enzymes in our body are just silvering to get something. So, Kathy, would you clearly tell us when to start?
No.
No. Okay. Bon appetit.
Mr. Andre, I have not seen you in years. I saw you just